Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Lindblom. I'm from BlackLine. I'm Regional Vice President for the Account Management Organization in EMEA. Probably some of you have already know about what BlackLine do, but before we get started, and before I introduce our guests, let me take a moment to introduce to you BlackLine for those who don't know what we do. BlackLine is a global leader in cloud-based financial automation solutions. Our platform helps transform organizations in terms of how they manage their close and optimize their finance accounting functions. We help by automating the routine tasks such as reconciliations, journal entries, and also the financial process. This also helps companies in terms of driving accuracy, transparency, and also compliance, while really focusing on freeing up valuable resources for strategic decision-making in those companies as well. One of the key areas that, especially for those who were here yesterday on the workshop, that BlackLine focuses on is on the invoice to cash process. This is really where we help our customers accelerate their accounts receivables, optimize cash flow, and also reducing the DSO. We also specialize in intercompany accounting, automating some complex transactions across the business, making sure again that we get complete accuracy, transparency, and compliance with these regulatory standards that are coming across. All of this should result in a faster and more efficient financial close for all our customers. So with that said, that was the intro, but I'm very excited to introduce my two esteemed guests here, Timea from Trivium Packaging, and also Tom Bangerman, who you all know, I'm sure. So, Timea, would you like to do a quick intro?
My name is Timea Radic. I don't know if you hear me well. I'm working for Trivium Packaging. Our center was established in 2020, and I joined as a second employee of the company. I'm heading the whole shared service center, covering finance, procurement, some corporate IT, HR, and logistics functions right now. Before that, I started my career at another multinational first as a client of a shared service center. So I was one of the first clients they implemented into their shared service center platform, and maybe I was a bit of a demanding customer, because then later on they asked me to join their next GBS. So actually I already established shared service center twice. I was a GPO. I was involved in BlackLine implementation as a professional in my previous company. So I already implemented BlackLine twice in my career. So all in a nutshell, yeah, to start with.
Thank you. Tom.
Yeah.
Quick intro.
Tom, you might have seen me decades ago for working for the Hackett Group, which I did for 19 years. Before that, I actually also worked as an auditor, so I did learn some finance before I started to talk about it. And now representing SSOW research here on the stage and trying to quote some of our research findings to give some background to this discussion from that side.
Fantastic. Thank you both. So I'm going to start off with asking Tom a question in terms of, we're discussing R2R here today in terms of GBS. So is that still the right thing to do? Followed by, really, should all these, is this the right model for finance? Should really R2R process work within GPS as well?
Yeah, so if we don't believe in the shared service or GBS model, we could keep this discussion really short, right? We just stop it and you come up with a different model and then we discuss that. And there's been quite a lot of discussion, and if you read articles and LinkedIn posts and so on, you will find that there's a lot of people who are critical, or at least believe that the model might not be sustainable or needs to evolve or something of that sort. So whatever opinion you have, I'm not trying to change your opinion, I'm just sharing research findings and data. But in every single piece of research that we do in SSOW, regardless of how we ask the question, the result is that 80% plus will tell us that they have the model and they keep the model, some sort of center-based model that they use. It might not be perfect, but then what model is perfect? It's just a question of, existing alternatives. So that said, it seems to be the environment that we're going to use also in the future for transactional finance activities. And R2R, while it's used is a little bit lower in utilization in GBS than BTP or OTC, still most of the work in R2R is done in some sort of center environment. So therefore, I think it makes sense to discuss R2R in this environment and assume that most of your work is actually in shared service centers.
Okay. Following on for that, Tom, in R2R, clearly closing and reporting are the biggest two areas. But I know that we did some research together focusing on intercompany. So what's sort of the main findings from your research that you did on that?
Yeah, so we did a specific piece on intercompany, which, I've done a lot of research in my life, but I think it was the only one I've ever done specifically on intercompany in GBS. If you know another one, let me know, because I didn't find a single one. Now, it's not a big piece, but still it produced a lot of hassle for people. Interesting findings were, for example, that only 19% said they don't have a problem with intercompany. So pretty much everybody has some sort of issues with this process. Biggest problem seems to be that there's no clear owner, right? Because you have bits and pieces all over the company, and you have finance, accounting, tax, controlling. Everybody is participating somehow. But if you want to run a project, who's going to take it as an owner? 30% have GBS as an owner, but the other 70 have all kinds of different solutions. So that is the biggest problem in doing any sort of improvement work, because you don't have anybody who wants to do it, actually. The differences in let's call it productivity metrics are huge. Unbelievably huge. You will have other areas in finance, in AP, AR, and so on, where people are sort of gotten closer over the past 30 years. They've all done their improvement work. Things are pretty good. In intercompany, huge differences. So you can look at that, things like transactions per FD or things like that. Enormous differences. Some of the fun findings were that, for example, only 61% have policies that they update regularly. Obviously, it's helpful if you have a policy and you update it. I would have expected that to be 99%, but there's a lot of people who either don't have a policy or they have somewhere in the drawer, but it's actually not valid. The biggest request from everybody was that we need AI. I'm not sure they knew exactly what they meant by it. We didn't know either asking the question, but at least there's a big interest in so I'll play the ball back to BlackLine and say, you guys need to come up with something. There's clearly a big interest in doing something of that sort. So those were maybe some of the, there's a lot more, but some of the key findings that came out of that survey. If you want it, you can get it from SSOW or BlackLine. It's free.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Right, Timmy, let's turn to you. Could you describe your transformation journey that you've gone through with Trivium? Talk about the journey you went through, some of the challenges, but then also looking at some of the things that you want to make sure that you've done first time as well.
Okay, so maybe start with my previous company a bit. So there I was working for more than 15 years, and then we started to centralize R2R, the transactional part for whole Europe. We were also working with different ERPs, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics, and SAP. And then you might know, or if not, I think it's very important to mention that you can use the BlackLine tool with multiple ERPs, which was the case at my previous company. And there we had to wait. We felt we have to wait till we have certain standard processes defined before we implement BlackLine. And I think that was, for example, for me, a huge learning that we were wrong. And because of that, when I joined Trivium and we started to build the center, our ultimate goal was to start with it much earlier, because then it enabled us to find the challenges and solve them much more early than before. So I joined Trivium 2020. we established the center in the middle of COVID, and then we started to transition and centralize first the transactional activities, traditional ones, AP, AR, and the transactional part of record to report, which means journal entries, fixed assets, leasing, accounting, and that kind of stuff. And I was very lucky because I could actually hire 2 people in my team into very key roles, general accounting manager and head of finance, who actually had experience with BlackLine. So we could pretty fast convince our CFO to go with the tool. And while we were centralizing and transitioning work from all over Europe, around the middle of the transition phase, we already started to work with BlackLine. And we focused on account reconciliation first, so that's the module that we bought first. And then we had actually a rollout approach, so we had a pilot, which was Italy, so we have chosen a country which was not the most difficult one, but also not the easiest. And then we identified waves, and then we started to work with it. As a result, we could implement BlackLine pretty fast. I would say in a year or so for whole Europe, and especially not only Europe, but that was the first project we had identified as a global project. So we also invited our shared service center in the US to take part in the project, and also we rolled out the tool for our Asian subsidiaries, so like Korea, Morocco, Japan, but also in Americas. It's not only US, but Brazil and Argentina, they are working on the same platform. However, not all of them are using SAP. And what happened is that, I don't know if any of you have a central repository of those account reconciliations, because what happened at Trivium, we were said everyone has the reconciliations under control. And once we started to upload those proof of documents and reconciliations in BlackLine, it came to the surface that there is no standard way of doing it. Most people thought that opening balance plus monthly movement equals closing balance kind of Excel sheets are reconciliations. And also in our controls, actually, the scan signature was more important than the content. So what we recognized that the result, what we have seen in the tool, gave us much more opportunities, so we could come up with a lot of improvements, and in the end it resulted in the fact that the record to report team in the GBS became much more visibility in the headquarters, and as a result of that successful story, we found a lot of $1 million with which we could improve our bottom line, and in the end we could also transition more work. So right now, in Europe, we have 95% of the record to report activities happening out of Budapest. And I think the successful BlackLine implementation was playing a key role in that, of course, together with the people.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, people's key. So how do you ensure that the whole R2R process within your BSC aligns to the overall financial goals and the strategies of Trivium packaging?
First of all, those goals we set together with the head of accounting and the VP of corporate controlling, who is actually also a very good advocate for the tool. So he started to use the tool as a basic for their balance sheet reconciliation reviews by plant. So they actually use it also for internal controls, internal audits. We are now in negotiation with PwC that they also accept it officially as the primary basis for their audit. I think ENY and KPMG already authorized the software, but PwC is doing it right now. So in the end, for example, it also gives us audit savings. So as every company, every year we have deep discussions with the function, with the finance function primarily, but of course with other functions as well, and we try to focus on them. As a result of that, we also started to work on another module. We also recognize that our closing process is very low, which means that we can communicate our results to the market a bit late. So that is also giving some points to our image on the market, and we are working on on the month-end closing module of BlackLine right now.
Fantastic, thank you. So, what do you think? Clearly, we always say that these projects are always successful, but clearly there are some challenges as well as you go through. So, what were some of the key challenges? Because I think for everyone that's the reality check in terms of projects is that there are challenges.
Yeah, definitely. On one hand, maybe one of our challenge was that we thought we know what we want. So as we already had experience with the tool, we just wanted to go too fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's generically our experience with Trivium, that we hired a lot of very experienced people who have done it several times already, and we thought then it will work like that. But of course, you need to make sure that the rest of the company can go with you, and they are also prepared for it. And I think on one of the sessions before, someone said that we need to speak the same language. So definitely we got it wrong in the beginning. For example, we had endless debates of how do we define if an account is reconciled or not. If you have a difference on it, do you still it's finished? So there were a lot of discussions around the terminology. So that I would recommend to start in the beginning and maybe involve the key personnel a bit earlier than we did. Of course, there was some pushback. Then in the end, once it became operational and people started to see the benefits, everyone wanted to have access to it. But then, of course, as always, you have a limit you need to draw because of the cost impact. So maybe those were the biggest ones. And still, we are some countries whom we continuously need to push that they use the tool in the right way.
Get the overall.
Yes, for example, with Brazil, we are still suffering a bit, as for them it's a bit more manual than for us from SAP. From SAP, everything goes automatically, so there are a lot of accounts that gets reconciled automatically. I know, I'm sure you all know that that's part of the journey, that first almost everything is manual, the tool only enables you to do the improvement, but then as you go, you can build in more and more automations, and for them who are not on SAP, it's a bit more difficult, but we are getting there.
Yeah, good. I got one more question, and I'm going to let you draw breath before I move over to Tom again. But one of the things is, clear technology is a big thing as part of any GBS. So how does your team leverage technology automation to really try to enhance the efficiency and accuracy in the R2R process?
You mean outside of the
Yeah.
Yep.
What are
So, of course, we have a pretty old SAP R2, which is a pretty old version. So we are now looking into S4 as a next step. Next to BlackLine, we are using HFM as a reporting tool, and we have a lot of automation going on. So, of course, as everyone, we have a few RPAs implemented, but now we are looking into AIs and especially Microsoft Power Apps, which we will use for automate certain functions and automate our communication with our clients. For example, for journal entries, we will use Microsoft Power Apps integrated with SAP.
Okay, thank you. That's good. It's almost like we rehearsed this because you mentioned about AI in there. So, Tom, what are you seeing happening in the R2R area in terms of AI, Gen AI, and other technologies? What are your thoughts on that?
No discussion ever without Gen AI being. So we did a piece of research on Gen AI this year. Actually, we did two, and the problem there was a little bit similar to the problem that I described in Intercompany, which is that everybody wants to do something, like we heard on the different presentations today, but they don't know where to start. So first you have to have somebody who owns it or wants to run the project. And the biggest problem in running the project was skills. So most companies said they don't have enough skills or capabilities to do this, or at least to do this at the speed they would like to proceed. At the same time, they all said that their primarily approach to Gen AI is to upskill internal people. So the approach of only using internal resources is sort of slowing down people. I think it would be wise to use help in the beginning to get the upskilling done quicker, and then of course move to a more captive approach. But that is sort of one of the main issues, and it's of course in any area. What I found surprising though in your discussion, if I may ask you that, is that 95% of R2R in the center is actually a really good percentage.
Yep.
So when you think about R2R in sort of end-to-end totality, so you have your general ledger activities and closing intercompany, all kinds of reporting. So if you have 95% of that, that's actually really good. Most companies don't have that. They would be somewhere around 60, 70, to be honest. And I think some of the reasons are that when you have this discussion in R2R, cost is not the primary driver. Based on all the research we do, it's either quality, for example, in the reporting area, it's about quality, or it's time. Like, for example, for closing specifically, people want to hit a certain date. Although the date discussion is interesting, if I look at the metrics for the last 30 years, all these companies that are the best are always somewhere between 3 and 5 days. There are companies who can do it on day one, and they have these fantastic slides where you see the curve, and then there's timestamp on it, like 23:42 and 21:21 or 18:15. That's the time on day one when they actually finished. I'm not sure what the benefit of that is. I have not found out what it delivers. The main benefit that I always found in research was that you need to be closing at the same time as your sector. So if everybody in your industry comes out on day 5 and you come out on day 15, the market perception is that there's something wrong with your processes. Because why can you not do this like everybody else in the same kind of business 10 days earlier? But if you are 2 days faster, there might be some information benefit that you have because you go out first. But other than that, from a closing point of view, there was never really a good reason to do that. So those are some of the differences, which is, it's a different discussion than if you do AP, AR, whatever, because there you have this cost argument. You can always argue why you move it to Budapest, right? So since you were successful in moving all of that to Budapest, you must have been very good at arguing this point.
Yeah, actually, I think we were not fighting for it. That's good news. So our CFO is very much keen on pushing it from his end, but also I think we proved our existence, and we also proved pretty fast that we are capable of more. And then the BU or the corporate came to us, and finally 95% is a target. We are not there yet. We are working on the last bits and pieces. But for example, even forecasting is already with us. FP&A is sitting in Budapest as well, which helps, of course, because forecasting is happening with them. Cash flow forecasting is also happening out of Budapest. And now I think the indirect tax, that also helped a lot. And now I think the last bits and pieces are coming together. How we will manage statutory accounting. There will be a session, so I will also listen to it. So it's good to hear that you are saying it's unique, and we also feel that we are in a very good position. But again, I would like to emphasize my learning was that you don't need to wait with the tool implementation and do the preparation work all before. So I think some of us think we need to first, for example, to the month-end closing, we need to come up with a standard closing checklist before we put it into the tool. But maybe my experience is now that if you do it on the other way around, you can be much faster.
And from a sort of skill career point of view, it's a fairly logical development, isn't it? I mean, when you do sub-ledger, general ledger, then you move into as-is numbers, and then you take 2B numbers, and then you start mixing them. So you go from accounting through reporting to forecasting. It's fairly logical to move people along. So it's helpful if you have some of those jobs in scope that you can actually offer that.
But there, for example, I think if I might, I know we are running out of time. We made a mistake. So first we did it that we upskilled all of our internal people, and we didn't hire anyone from the external part who was already doing it before. And because of that, the adoption was a bit slower. So finally, we had to add some people externally to the forecasting team because our internal people were not all up to the challenge. Let's put it in that way.
Yeah, thank you. I know we're roughly running out of time here. So, Tim, one question I would like to ask you is, how do you manage compliance and risk within the R2R process in there? As you're a global multi-country setup, how do you manage that across the board?
The risk?
Yeah, compliance as well.
So actually, we are separated organizationally. We are reporting to the same boss, but we are collaborating. So there were some thinking about merging those two centers, but it's not working. They are much smaller than us. So we have 250 people here for Europe, covering a lot of functions. While in the US, they are only covering finance, and they have about 20 people. So it made no sense. But we have a very close relationship. So we are sharing information, we are learning from each other. So whenever we have a new project like BlackLine, or recently we are working on an optical character recognition software implementation, we do all of that together. But we also learn from them. So there are some activities that they are doing, which we are not doing. So now we are trying to learn from them how they could convince the business in the US to make sure that order entry and some supply chain activities are also done by them. So it's more of a win-win situation we could create.
Good, fantastic. Right. So,
yep.
I was going to ask you, are there any questions from the audience?
We have the mic. We have two mics. One or two questions. Thank you. Coming. Up.
Hi. Interested to understand your expectations from BlackLine in terms of the AI journey and how BlackLine can actually support you going forward.
I actually didn't hear the question so well.
I was interested to understand about your expectations in how BlackLine can support you in the AI journey. How do you see BlackLine as a supplier really supporting and driving efficiencies through AI?
Okay, so actually, I think in case of the record to report area, so the BlackLine software implementation and the result that we have seen there called the attention for further issues which we could solve with AI. So that happened mainly. That also brought to the surface a lot of additional opportunities for automation. Some of them we can solve inside BlackLine, and there are some that we need to solve somewhere in between BlackLine.
Yeah, and that's a good question because how do we support our customers with terms of AI?
Yep.
So we have investing heavily in AI to support our customers. For example, if you're looking at doing some variance analysis, the commentary around that. For example, we have AI. Built into the solution, so it does the commentary for you, and then it's going and check it, because clearly that takes an awful long time.
Yep.
For people, for staff to do that in the closing process, to do the analysis, do the write-up on month end as well. So that's one of the areas. But there are many other areas within our solution that we will help our customers and deploy AI to support that as well. So, but please feel free to come to our booth afterwards. I know we've got 23 seconds left.
Maybe time for one last question. Otherwise, we are going to thank the panelists. Maybe a last word.
Yeah, no, thank you both very much. I hope it's been insightful to all of you. We are right across from here. Please feel free to come and stop by and make sure you get scanned, because for every time we scan you, we plant a tree to help the world. So yeah, but thank you so much for coming, and thank you very much for Timia and Tom. Thank you.
Thank you.